Hey guys, welcome back to another ESO build guide. I'm Dying Legacy, and this is the Violent Flame build, a Magicka Dragonknight for solo content. Freshly updated for patch 36, the Violent Flame is my main Magicka Dragonknight build, packing strong damage, AoE and survivability. This Dragonknight, after so many patches, has not slowed down and continues to dominate solo veteran dungeons and arenas. This is a quick build guide. We'll be going over the race, attributes, Munderstones, food, potions, gear, skills, passives, and the champion point slottables. This info will be minimal, so I'll only be going over what's necessary. However, do feel free to comment below if you have any questions, need a hand, or if there's anything I could do better. With the intro covered, let's go over the Violent Flame build. Starting with the race, it doesn't really matter what you use, play how you like. It's your adventure and your story after all, but if you're looking for suggestions, I'd recommend either the Breton if you're looking for more sustain, the Khajiit for extra critical damage, or a High Elf for extra spell damage. For the attributes, we're putting 64 points into Magicka, and for our Munderstone, when we're doing solo content, we're taking the Lover Munderstone for extra spell and physical penetration. When doing content as part of a group, we'll be taking the Thief Munderstone for that extra critical rating. And for our food, we're taking the Clockwork Citrus Fillet to increase our health recovery, max Magicka, and Magicka recovery. You can pick these up at a guild vendor or make it yourself at the cooking station if you have the recipe. This can be rather expensive to get your hands on though, in which case the cheaper option is the Witchmother's Potent Brew. The stats are slightly lower and it doesn't give health recovery, but it's a very small difference and it doesn't matter which one you use overall. For our potions, we are using Essence of Spell Power, which grants us major sorcery, major prophecy, major intellect, and restores some Magicka immediately. We'll be using these for those longer and tougher fights. We can grab these at a guild vendor or make them ourselves at an alchemy station. If you haven't got any on you at the time, you can always pop a Essence of Magicka instead. This will give us major intellect and restore some Magicka immediately. They might not be as useful as spell power potions, but they are better than nothing and they do drop from almost every enemy in the game, so you should be stacked on them. Moving on to the gear now, we have the option to use a Maelstrom Inferno Staff and Payloader Ring on this build. They aren't necessary by any means and we have options in their stead which we'll go over first. We are using 6 light armor pieces and 1 medium armor piece on this build, all with the Divine's trait and a Magicka enchant. And for the jewellery we're using the Bloodthirsty trait and a spell damage enchant. For our weapons we're using the Jewel Daggers on our front bar, and for our main hand we're going with the Nirnhone trait and a fire enchant, and for our offhand dagger we're going with the Charge trait and a poison enchant. For our back bar, we're taking a Inferno Staff with the Infused trait and a Weapon Damage enchant. Moving on to the sets themselves, starting with the body pieces, which are the chest, waist, hands, legs and feet. Our first choice is the Trials set, and it's the Whirl of Depth set. This set is gotten from the Dreadsail Reef, and on veteran difficulty you can get a perfected version which adds extra critical chance to the set. It's a minor increase compared to the unperfected version, so it doesn't matter what version you use. The set itself gives us weapon and spell damage, minor slayer at all times, and our light attacks add a damage over time effect to our target that deals frost damage over 8 seconds, and when the effect ends, a whirlpool is created under the target doing frost damage for a further 6 seconds. If you haven't stepped into a trial or want to use something else, you can use the Xian's Redress set found in the Lair of Marsalok DLC dungeon. This set adds Magicka recovery, weapon and spell damage, and max Magicka. Your light attacks apply the touch of Zen to an enemy for 20 seconds, causing them to take 1% more damage for each damage over time effect that is placed on them, up to 5%. You can also use the Order's Wrath set, which is a crafted set from High Isle. You can also buy it from a guild vendor. This set adds lots of critical chance, weapon and spell damage, and it also increases critical damage and healing by 8%. For our weapons and jewellery, we are going with the Pillar of Nirn set, which is gotten from the DLC dungeon Valkyrie's Hold, which gives us max stamina, critical chance, and weapon and spell damage. And when you deal damage, you'll deal bleed damage to the target enemy and enemies near the target, and causing them to take bleed damage for an extra 10 seconds. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. For our monster set, for our helm and shoulder slots, we can use the Iceheart set. The helm can be gotten from Direfrost Keep on Veteran and the shoulders from the Undaunted vendors. This set adds critical chance, and when we deal critical damage, we have a chance to gain a damage shield that also deals frost damage to nearby enemies. Now for the Ring of the Pale Order, which is gotten from the Antiquity system. When using this, we will heal for 20% of all the damage we do. We can't be healed by anyone but ourselves, and the healing we do does decrease when we're in groups. The ring will take up a ring slot, obviously, so we'll need to wear our jewellery set on either our shoulder or helm. The slot doesn't matter. We will lose our 2-set bonus from our monster set, but the Pale Order ring will make up for it with the healing. You can go with Slime Crawl, which is gotten from the Veteran Wayrest 1 sewer, for the 1-piece bonus, which is extra critical damage. Or you could also use the Magma Incarnate set. The head is found in the Dreadseller DLC dungeon on Veteran, and the shoulder from the Undaunted vendor. Magma Incarnate's 1-set bonus will give us Magicka and stamina recovery. Lastly is the Maelstrom Inferno Staff, which is gotten from the Maelstrom Arena, and we'll be using this on our back bar. There's a perfected version from Veteran difficulty which adds extra offensive penetration. Doesn't matter which version we use, as we are mostly interested in the base effect, which increases the damage of our wall of elements. That covers the gear, and now it's time for the skills, starting with the front bar. We are using Burning Embers, which is morphed from Searing Strike and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal flame damage instantly and add a damage over time effect that lasts for 24 seconds and deals flame damage. You'll also heal for a percentage of the damage done, and will also afflict the enemies with Burning status effect. We are also using Engulfing Flames, which is morphed from Flame Breath and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will deal flame damage to enemies in front of us, causing them to burn for 24 seconds, and affected enemies will take more damage from flame attacks. Next is Barb Trap, morphed from Trap Beast, and it can be found in the Fighter's Guild skill line. The trap deals bleed damage and causes the enemy to bleed for 20 seconds, and it also grants you minor force. The damage has a higher chance of causing the hemorrhaging status effect. Enemies who trigger the trap can be immobilized for 2 seconds. This is followed up by Flame Lash, which is morphed from Lava Whip and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. You'll lash an enemy, dealing flame damage, and if the enemy is immobilized or stunned, you'll knock him off balance. Targeting an off-balance enemy will change this skill into Power Lash, causing the skill to cost half the Magicka and deal extra damage as well as healing. We are also using Volatile Armor, morphed from Spiked Armor and found in the Draconic Power skill line. We'll spray spikes around us, causing enemies to take magic damage for 20 seconds, giving us major resolve, and when enemies attack us from melee range, we'll return some of the damage back to the enemy. For the ultimate on the front bar, we're using Flawless Dawnbreaker, morphed from Dawnbreaker and found in the Fighter's Guild skill line. You'll deal physical damage to enemies in front of you and additional physical damage over 6 seconds, and after activating the skill, we will increase our weapon and spell damage by 300 for 20 seconds. That completely covers the front bar, so next up is the back bar, starting with Unstable Wall of Fire, morphed from Wall of Elements and found in the Destruction Staff skill line. This will create a line of fire in front of you for 10 seconds, dealing flame damage to enemies standing in it. When the skill ends, the wall of fire explodes, dealing more flame damage. If you're using the Maelstrom Staff, this effect will be stronger. We are also using Scalding Ruin, which is morphed from Fire Rune and found in the Mage's Guild skill line. This puts a rune on the ground that takes 2 seconds to arm and lasts for 24 seconds. When triggered, this deals fire damage to all enemies in the target area and dealing additional flame damage over 26 seconds. We follow this up with Harness Magicka, which is morphed from Annulment and found in the Light Armor skill line. This requires you to be wearing 5 light armor pieces to be usable and will convert some of your Magicka into a shield. The shield will absorb damage and restore it to you as Magicka. Next up is Degeneration, morphed from Entropy and found in the Mage's Guild skill line. This adds a damage over time effect to your target that deals Magicka damage over 24 seconds, which also grants you Major Brutality and Sorcery for 24 seconds. Next is Cauterize, morphed from Inferno and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will cause us to fire fireballs at ourselves for over 15 seconds, causing us to heal, and while slaughtered will grant us Major Prophecy and Savagery. The ultimate on the back bar is Standard of Might. It's morphed from Dragonknight Standard and found in the Ardent Flame skill line. This will place a flag in front of you and deal flame damage for 20 seconds to any enemy standing in it. It will also apply Major Maim. If you or allies stand near the flag, you'll take 15% less damage and also deal 15% more damage. An ally near the standard can also activate the Shackle Synergy, dealing flame damage to enemies and immobilizing them for 5 seconds. Now, that covers all the skills, so we're going to quickly go over all the passives, starting with our class passives. First up is the Ardent Flame skill line. In here we want to take Combustion, Warmth, Searing Heat and World and Ruin. In the Draconic skill line we'll be taking Iron Skin, Burning Heart, Elder Dragon and Scaled Armour. And into the Earthen Heart skill line we want Battle Roar and Helping Hands. We're not using any Earthen Heart abilities, so the other passives won't be used. We're using Dual Daggers, so we'll take everything in the Dual Wield skill line. These are Slaughter, Dual Wield Expert, Control Fury, Ruffian and Twin Blade and Blunt. We're using Destruction Staffs, so we'll take everything in the Destruction Staff skill line. These are Trifocus, Penetrating Magic, Elemental Force, and Ancient Knowledge and Destruction Expert. We are wearing Light Armor, so we'll take everything in the Light Armor skill line too, which are Grace, Evocation, Spell Warding, Prodigy, and Concentration. And we're also wearing Medium Armor, so we'll take everything in the Medium Armor skill line as well, which are Dexterity, Windwalker, Improved Sneak, Agility, and Athletics. Next up is the Fighter's Guild skill line. In here we'll be taking Intimidating Presence, Slayer, Banish the Wicked and Skilled Tracker. And in the Undaunted passives we'll be taking Undaunted Command and Undaunted Metal. This next passive is an optional one and can be found in the Assault skill line, and it's Continuous Attack. We only need to put 1 point into this to gain Major Gallop. We get nothing extra for adding a second point unless you plan on doing PvP in places such as Cyrodiil or otherwise. Moving on to the racial passives, these are specific to your race. You will need to grab everything, and you should also make sure you read over all the passives as well, so you understand what they do and know what benefits and advantages you have, as every race's passives are completely different. And lastly, one more optional passive, which I would class as necessary, and its medicinal use, which is found in the alchemy skill line. This causes our potions to last much longer and makes potions outlast their cooldown, so you can always have a potion active. Now, that covers all of the passives, so with that out of the way, we'll move on to the champion point slottables, and we'll be starting in the warfare tree. In the warfare tree, you want to take wrathful strikes to increase weapon and spell damage. You want fighting finesse to increase our critical damage and critical healing. We also want deadly aim to increase our damage done with single target attacks, and we also want thaumaturge to increase our damage done with damage over time effects. And down into the fitness tree skill line, we'll be taking Boundless Vitality for increased health, Fortified for increased armor, we'll be taking Rejuvenation to increase our overall sustain, and we'll also be taking Siphoning Spells just so we get Magicka back when we kill enemies. And finally, into the craft skill line. As per usual, it doesn't really matter what you take in here, everything's very situational and it does depend on the player, but for myself when doing solo play, I like to take Treasure Hunter to increase the quality of items I find in treasure chests. I also like Rationeer just to increase the duration of my food. I like to take Liquid Efficiency just so I have a slight chance not to consume a potion when I use it. And I also like to take Steed's Blessing just to increase my out of combat movement speed a bit, just to help get around the map a bit, just when I'm doing solo play. And that's everything you need for the champion point slottables, and that also covers the Violent Flame build. Thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope this build was helpful or gave you some ideas for your own builds, and if it did, why not comment below and let me know how you got on with it or what ideas it gave you. And while you're down there, why not hit the like and subscribe buttons? That way you'll know when I release another build or guide or any other form of content that I may end up making. If you would prefer to chat to me directly in real time, you can also catch me over on Twitch at twitch.tv/dyinglegacy and go over and hit the follow button. That way you'll be ready for my Christmas stream, where the community has chosen a sexy Santa stream, mini skirt and all. Perfect attire for Christmas during freezing weather. Anywho, thanks again guys, you've been fantastic, I've been Dying Legacy, and until next time, stay awesome.